So I thought I'd talk a little bit more about this wonderful, horrible thing that I recently signed, this tenancy agreement for the mobile home on the farm where I'm working currently. And yeah, I thought I'd go on a bit like about the extent to which it's illegal, why it's illegal, and or like why it's sort of invalid as a legal document for like very crucial reasons. So, for instance, which relates to the payment of deposit. There's a deposit of 1 month's rent is payable in advance of occupation. It does give a date for when the tenancy period begins, the 2nd December 2021. However, what they've curiously decided to omit is any reference date on which the contract had been signed, which is crucial, really, in being able to estimate the legality of that clause. Because if you can't tell when a document's been signed, that's why contracts always or almost always include the date, the date on which it's been signed. That's always been a thing, right? That's like a somewhat important bit of a contract. Because contracts will very often contain clauses like that where you need to know when it's been signed to figure out whether or not it's legal. Because they gave me this contract after I'd started living here to sign it, and then I'd already started the job as well, and they sort of harried me and harassed me into signing the contract. So like I was under duress when signing it. That also makes it invalid, like completely invalid. And then after my first month of work, they took the deposit from my wages, which I did not authorize even under the terms of this, since there's nothing in the contract to suggest they can take out of your wages. So like that's illegal, and I've contacted ACAS already to try and get that sorted out through mediation, try and get that deposit back of 500 quid. And yeah, like I'm tempted to go through all of it and like pick it apart and ridicule it because it's fun. But like what this is an example of, this is a home brew of a contract. This is like this has been cobbled together by these people I'm working for, slash my landlords, if you like. The major problem I'm having with it at the moment is the final clause, which is under heading D, saying special letting terms. In the event of termination of employment where? With them? We're supposed to assume it is with them, but that's not in the contract, so it's not applicable. The rent will revert to the full market rent of £950 per month for the balance of the tenancy agreement. £950 a month. Well, for this 1-bedroom caravan, well, it's 2-bedroom actually, but yeah, even so, I think not. And they'll be like making arguments. Oh, but what about the location though? It's like it is by a big stinky dairy farm. I doubt anyone would want to fucking live here unless they want to work on a dairy farm. So yeah, I doubt. Yeah, and so in essence, what they're trying to do, they're trying to extort money from me using this. And I expect what they'll try and do is if I work here for the 8-week notice period, they'll try and pare down or cut away my wages to the tune of £950 a month. This is what I'm expecting they'll do. And say, oh, but in the contract it says for the rest of the letting period, the contract. It's like, this contract, because it hasn't been dated at the end, because I don't know when the boss signed the contract. I don't know when I signed the contract. Like, it's meaningless. It means nothing at all. It's worthless. It is a chocolate teapot of a contract. It's also like trying to effect extortion on a level, I suspect. And they've already extorted a bit of money out my pay packet, which is in breach of contract. So it's void already. Again, it's void from the moment it was signed. And I had a member of my family sort of message me on Facebook the other day, trying to convince me that I'm bound by it by law. And like, for one thing, she hadn't read it. And it's like, you don't know, like, yeah, all contracts like bind you legally into accepting their terms. or submitting to their terms. All contracts do, obviously. If you sign any document, you're bound by its terms. That's why you should never sign something, right? It doesn't matter either way if you fucking sign something. It really doesn't. Like all those, imagine this case. Imagine if this were brought before a court. You know, like the fraudulent double glazing salesman and the old lady, and the judge saying to the old lady, "You pay up, dear. You signed a contract. It's legal." Like, of course, it's not fucking legal. It is fraud. Like, it's not like, oh, the first time a fraudster has used a contract to try and effect extortion. Oh, that could never have happened before, could it? Why would they use like such a noble and mighty legal document, like, such as a contract, such a hallowed and revered thing? Like, some contracts are ridiculous. This has got all sorts of unbelievable bollocks in it as well. It's got gibberish in it also. I'll read some of the gibberish. The landlord includes the persons from time to time to receive the rent. What does that mean? I don't know. I'm going to frame this at some point in my life and keep it in my house when I get one. Like, the landlord includes the persons from time to time to receive the rent. If it said the landlord is the person to receive the rent, or is the person who receives the rent, I'd be like, okay, it's a bit of a redundant statement, but it makes sense at least. It says the landlord includes the persons from time to time to receive the rent. Includes the persons. How can the landlord include other people? Like, it's like the landlord is more than one person living in the same body. They got like multiple personalities or something. The landlord holds the property on a lease. The landlord will, where appropriate, procure that his obligations are fulfilled by the superior landlord. Okay. When two or more persons are together, the landlord or the tenant, they are responsible for their obligations both jointly and individually. Only when they're together. There also should be a comma in that, you know, to suggest, well, provisions relating to the property apply to every part of it and its fixtures and fittings and decorations. Well, that's not so much bollocks. That's pretty standard stuff, I think. Like, the more and more I read it, like, the more I realize that the stuff that's on point is, you know, not is a little confusing still, but is basically right, I think, for a tenancy agreement. It's getting less and less, that stuff that's on point. What was interesting? Something about a London clearing bank. Like, I'll find where that is. It says about like late payments of rent. Where is it? Oh, here we go. If the tenant fails to pay within 7 days of the due date any amount of rent or other sum payable to the landlord under this tenancy agreement, the tenant will, on demand, pay to the landlord interest on that amount at the rate of 3% per year above the base rate of a London clearing bank chosen by the landlord, calculated from the due date until actual payment. Now, I did a bit of Googling around the other day about London clearing banks. And what a clearing bank is a bank that buys debt from other banks. So I don't know what interest rates they charge, and I wasn't able to find it online. But because they buy and sell debt accrued by banks, I'd have suggested that the interest rates are probably gargantuan, aren't they? Which leads me to suggest like this is that's also like a bit sneaky and fraudulent. I don't know how one would go about finding out that sort of information either without an expert knowledge of the banking system. I have no idea what a London clearing bank, like what their interest rates are. Yeah, in the situation, schoolboy law, where like a schoolboy gets one of his friends to sign a contract making him his slave or something like that. Like, the real fool in that situation is the schoolboy that's drafted the contract, not the person who signs it. Because it'd never be upheld. Mm. And there's other stuff in it, like you can't leave your door open, like as it says for any amount of time, I think. Yeah. What's also unfair in it? Oh, this is interesting. Yeah. Tenant will not bring any dangerous substances onto the property or do anything which may invalidate the insurance of the property or entitle the insurers to refuse to pay out policy monies or to increase the insurance premiums. Dangerous substances. So, well, what does that mean? We can't have cleaning fluids. We can't have gas. We've got gas on the property. That's a dangerous substance. It's just. Oh yeah. Landlord will give tenant exclusive uninterrupted occupation of the property together with the exclusive use of wardrobes, kitchen appliances, light fittings, and curtains. Curtains? Curtains? Oh, brilliant. I get to use the curtains exclusively. You didn't mention the electric fire, though, so I assume someone else can use that. And the wardrobes, but not the cupboards. I have to share those with other people. What the fuck? During the tenancy period, for as long as the tenant complies with the tenant's obligations under this tenancy agreement. Okay. Exclusive uninterrupted occupation of the property. Does that mean I have to never leave this property? There's also bits in here where it says that I have to inform the landlord whenever I go somewhere. Yeah, the tenants will not assign, underlet, charge, or part with possession of the whole or any part of the property. All right, that's fairly standard. Take in lodgers or share occupation of the property with any person. Share occupation of the property with any person. So I can't have guests? What, any people at all? I can't have anyone over? Or is that, well, they're not occupying it, they're a guest. What if they're inside the property, they are occupying it? So that's occupation of a property. Listen to this. The tenant will not carry on any profession, trade, or business whatsoever at the property, but will use it only as a private residence for the tenant personally and the tenant's immediate family. Well, it comes with a job. How can I avoid that? I carry on a profession here. What's it? Oh, at the property, right? Well, to what extent am I carrying on my profession here at work? Like, I don't know. Take my lunch breaks here. Block or put noxious or damaging substances into the sinks, baths, lavatory cisterns, or waste or soil pipes in the property, or allow them to overflow. So I can't clean the toilet. Do anything at the property which is illegal or immoral. Illegal or immoral. That's a very loose bit of terminology. Or is a nuisance, disturbance, or annoyance to the landlord. Blimey. Of any, or to the occupiers of any adjoining premises. What if they're annoyed by my sight? Like, oh, he annoys me. Don't like that guy, he's annoying. What can I do about that? Not a lot. Landlord is entitled to terminate this tenancy agreement by entering the property by way of forfeiture if any instalment of the rent is not received in full within 7 days of due date, whether or not the landlord formally demands it. Whether or not the landlord formally demands it. Don't they have to formally demand it? If the tenant fails to comply with any of the tenant's obligations under the tenancy agreement, or the tenant becomes bankrupt, or an interim receiver of his property is appointed, or the tenant, without making arrangements with the landlord or the landlord's agent, leaves the property vacant or unoccupied. Leaves the property vacant. Well, I have to have someone watching the property whenever I go to the shops or go out to meet friends. I can never leave it unoccupied. There's like something in another clause earlier in the contract that said like exclusive uninterrupted access, and by this bit of clause also, it seems I have to be here all the time. I can never leave it. Anyway, I might do a better video on this, or try to at some point in the future. Thank you everyone for watching. Bye bye. I love you lots.